Indiana basketball, Mike Woodson is handing out offers and getting visitors on campus. Tuesday was the first day that college coaches could contact class of 2023 recruits. And that resulted in Indiana extending an offer to Louisville Male High School's Kaleb Glenn. I mean, that's the second kid from Kentucky that they're looking at this year. And I said in the break, I can count on one hand in my life how many times I can recall Indiana looking at a kid from Kentucky. Never two in a season that I ever recall. There's just not, they don't produce a ton of talent there. And if they do have any talent, well, obviously they're going to probably go to Louisville or UK. But he's a 6'7" wing. He's on Indiana's radar, and he's got an offer now. And he visits Bloomington today. He's got offers from places such as Arizona State, Louisville, West Virginia, Cincinnati, Iowa State, South Carolina, and Wake Forest. Arizona State, Illinois, South Carolina, Arkansas, Memphis, and Ohio State were some of the programs that reached out to him on Tuesday for the first time. So obviously this kid's going to be getting a lot of attention. It will be interesting to see if he gets out of the state, because they don't produce the numbers of talent that Indiana does. Like I said, it's Louisville or Kentucky. I mean, because those are two good programs to begin with. And so, but Kentucky does a lot of most of their recruiting through Nike. No, I'm kidding. They do nationally. They're recruiting nationally. Louisville will get some hometown kids, but that'd be interesting.
We talked about it a few weeks ago with Kyle Netterip, and Indiana, you look at that roster for the Indiana-Kentucky All-Star game and look at all the schools Indiana kids are going to, those high and
5 Big Ten schools.
Compare it to what you had on the Kentucky side, and it's night and day. And that's why we talk about Indiana usually dominates that series. And so it is interesting. Those kids that are really good in Kentucky, that Kentucky and Louisville really want to land those kind of kids, because it's hard enough to get the in-state recruits. And Mike Woodson's he has no interest in letting that go. So that's another good sign. He's not afraid to cross those state borders to get really good talent.
Yeah, John, the producer, says the other guy is 3-star Reed Shepard from London, Kentucky, North Laurel High School. I don't remember a lot about him. I'll look that up. But yeah, it just goes to what I was talking about earlier, and that net that Mike Woodson and staff is throwing out there. Before, a lot of coaches, they just have their spots where they like to recruit. And of course the assistants, that's why you have 3 assistants. They usually they're good here. You got a guy that's good on the East Coast. You got a guy that's good in the Midwest. You got a guy that's good in the South, and whatnot. They're saying to hell with that. Woof. Just cover this half of the United States, or this, part. They're making the region a little bit bigger. But it doesn't matter where they are anymore. These guys are trying to get the best talent possible. And that's what you have to win, along with the right fit and all that. But it is just, let's get the best talent. And how can you not be impressed with what this staff has done in this short of time?
Right.
It's boom.
Well, this was the biggest, in my opinion, this was going to be the biggest concern. Mike Woodson can coach basketball. He coached the NBA. The big concern when he was hired is, he's never recruited. He's never had to deal with the 24/7, 365 nature of college basketball. So the fact that he's, basically, as you call it, the parade through Assembly Hall, reaching out to these kids, not just within the state, but he was able to get kids through the portal. He was able to get players at Indiana who had entered the portal to return to Indiana. He's reaching out to 2022, 2023. So the fact that he's doing so well in recruiting, and he hired staff members that have that experience, in like you said, the different regions of the country. The fact that he's doing so well in recruiting right now, that's a really positive sign, because that was kind of viewed as the one thing that might be the thing that might hurt him. And clearly that it's worked in his favor so far.
Let's see. I think that who's your friend? You're talking about Kaleb Glenn, I believe, when he says he's a great talent, but likely UNC bound. He loves Carolina. Doubtful that Indiana gets him for a visit. Because before that, Chris asked, what do you think of the Washington kid from Gary or those other two Indy kids? So I'm not sure who you were talking about, but I have not gotten to see Jalen Washington play because he was sat out the All-Star game that I went to. But obviously he is a hot commodity. So it will be interesting to see how that one works out, because those are the ones you really don't want to lose. I've talked about it for Indiana football. They need to get to that point of winning those big-time elite battles in the state. Losing Trey Kaufman, just from a perception standpoint, was a little bit of a blow. But no, that's gone because of the change of staff. That gaffe is completely wiped out because that would never happen again now. And it happened simply because of who was in place at the time. But yeah, I just getting these guys on campus is doing wonders. But the fact that people were concerned of, and I should have thought about this before too, of Mike Woodson's, will he be able to recruit? He's been dealing with prima donna NBA basketball players for all this time. If you can deal with prima donnas, I think you can deal with 18-year-old kids. I really do. I mean, because they're more wide-eyed. They're more apt to listen. And he's got the stories to tell because he lived them, he did them, and he's done it at the highest level. Dealing with those NBA players is tougher than hell. It may be the toughest coaching job in coaching.
You're not wrong, but my counter to that would be Lovie.
I'm glad you didn't say the next line from the Big Lebowski.
Lovie Smith came in and his recruiting was awful. And I thought, this is the guy who led the Bears to the Super Bowl. He's in the state of Illinois. Recruiting's going to come easy. Everybody knows who Lovie Smith is. They're going to want to play for him. And basically, he just wanted to coach football. So that's where my mindset was with Mike Woodson. Is he going to want to come in and just coach basketball and not do the rest of it? Because that's where the problem would come in my opinion. And again, he surprised me. I didn't know what to expect, but that's where I thought that was going to be the hitch. I thought that was going to be the one arrow he didn't have in his quiver, and he was willing, and he hired the staff. He hired Thad Matta, Dane Fife, Yasir Roseman. So he's got guys there to help him do that and make that transition. Because in the NBA, you're right, you're dealing with personalities, but you're primarily coaching. This is so much different. You're recruiting constantly, you're coaching constantly, you're developing. So that's where when I saw what happened with Lovie Smith, I'm like, could this be the same issue with Mike Woodson? And he's hit the ground running. So I have
the difference. I think it's so much difference though between football and basketball because of the magnitude. Man, with basketball, there's less guys to focus on, and it's a little easier to do that. Whereas if in football, if you're not a Tom Allen type or a Nick Saban, which is the opposite because of just the winning and all that, because it takes, I don't know what Tom Allen runs on, but it takes a ton of energy to be a college football coach if you're going to be a good recruiter. And like you said, or you just could be lazy, or if you're very, very successful, then you get to sit back and wait for the phone call. Yes, let me hold on and wait for the president. But Lovie didn't have either of that. Illinois sucked, and he didn't get out and recruit. So there was neither of that going on there. And it's so big that if you're doing nothing in that large of a deal, you're screwed. And that's why there was zero improvement on there. They didn't recruit. They didn't develop. You're exactly right. He just came in and coached. And And in the NFL, that's what you do because you have a general manager. You have all that done for you. You have position coaches that you meet with. You're a manager.
Right.
You're basically a manager as an NFL coach. And you are that way in college, except for the recruiting aspect has to go on to it. But I agree with you. But yeah, Lovey did not put the effort in.
No,